I'd like to share with you a little bit about how the body works so that we can understand what happens when somebody becomes ill and how it's possible to make a person who is ill well and better and to heal them. So I don't want to make this difficult. Of course, medicine is not a simple subject and how the body works is complex. However, I want to share with you something which is not difficult, but will be very helpful to us in understanding how we use medications. In order to understand how the body works, we need to know a very basic fact that the body is made up of little components called cells, much like a building's made up of little components called bricks. And in order for a building to be strong, it needs bricks. The bricks need to be well made. So too, if the body is to be strong, it needs that the cells that make up the body are strong and well. And in order for cells to be well, they need two basic processes to be in place. The first one is giving the cell strength, and the second one is keeping the cells strong. So the first one again is giving strength to the cells, and the second one is making sure that the cells don't lose that strength of keeping the cells strong. Now, each of those processes have their own two main functions. So there are two main functions in how the cell gets strong and two main functions in how the cell stays strong. And I'm going to share with you those four functions in very simple terms that I'm sure we'll all be able to understand. So on the side of keeping the cell or making the cell strong, there are two functions. The first one is giving the cell energy, like giving it battery charge, like plugging it into a charger. And that is done by a little part of every cell called a mitochondrion, or in plural, mitochondria. And the role of mitochondria is to take in food particles in the cell and to turn them into fuel, into like gasoline, and that gasoline or electrical charge, electrical current, and then the cell has energy to do what it has to do. It's like it's a cell phone that's fully charged and it can run all its programs and all its apps. The second function of giving the cell strength is something we've all heard of. It's called vitamins. Vitamins. Now, vitamins, I'm sure we've all heard of vitamin A, B, C, D, E, and K. Vitamins are, by definition, substances, chemicals that the body cannot make. It has to import from the diet. It has to get it from outside the body and bring it into the body. And what do vitamins do? Vitamins are like a soccer coach, or perhaps a traffic officer, or perhaps a guru that tells the workers of the cell how to work best, what needs to be done the most. It's a air control tower in an airport. It's a guide. It's a director and a facilitator, that all the things in the cell are done according to priority and done in the best way possible. So we have the requirement of energy and vitamins in order to make sure the cell gets strength. And then we need, in order to keep the cell strong, we need two other functions. The first one is an interesting one. We don't hear so much about this, but it's very obvious. And that is the process of removing waste products. It's like the process of keeping the house clean, of keeping a kitchen clean, of keeping any place clean. It needs to remove the various things that accumulate because there's been some action or there's been some activity there. There's always the byproducts of life called wastes. And if the wastes are not removed, if they're not like cleaned out with a broom or with a vacuum cleaner or with some kind of way of getting them out, so they accumulate and they block the cell. They block the cell, and that's called toxicity. That is the first thing that needs to be avoided, has to be removed. The toxins have to be removed. There has to be cleaning air all the time in the cell. That's called detoxification. And the second of the functions that are necessary to keep the cell clean is something we're more familiar with, but it's perhaps not so well understood, and that's called the inflammatory system, the immune inflammatory system, inflammation. And what is inflammation? Inflammation is the ability of the cell to react to irritation or trauma or some kind of threat, some kind of insult, some kind of injury that's threatening the cell. The cell has to protect itself. It has to release certain chemicals to say, whoa, don't mess with me. Don't come inside here. Don't think you can do what you like. We're going to fight you. It's the protective system of the cell. And that's very, very important. It's vital to keep the cell strong so that it's not injured or not invaded or not irritated. And that's run by what we call the immune system, the immune response. And it's another term for it is the inflammatory response. And so those are enough for us to keep us busy. Those are the two main processes in the cell. Each one of them has two functions. And of course, in order for the cell to be well, it needs energy and vitamins, and it needs to be able to detoxify, and it needs to be able to respond in a constructive and effective way. What controls how well our cells do this? The answer is where we came from. Our contribution from our parents, and how that works is through the genes. It's largely determined by genes. Genes are the coded material we get from the seed of each of our parents, and the genes tell each of our cells how to get charged up, how to use vitamins, how to detoxify, and how to control and get our immune response working. And some of us have some strong genes in some or all of those areas, and some weak genes. And some of us have more weak genes in those areas than strong genes. And that will determine how vulnerable we are, how susceptible we are to illness, and how we are able to help the cells should they become weak because they don't have the charge, the energy, or they become slowed because they don't have the vitamins, or they become blocked because they are not detoxifying, not removing the toxins, or they become super reactive. They become irritated because they can't control the immune response. I hope that hasn't been too difficult to understand, but that's a very good, helpful introduction to how we can help the body get better when there is ongoing health issues.